This is the Perfect Being. I'm here to tell you all to subscribe to the perfect channel, UnrealEntGaming. Please remember to turn on your notifications to be the first to know about the latest in Dragon Ball news and information. And if you don't, very soon you will all be dead, along with your entire planet.
Dragon Ball Super returns as the Tournament of Power continues with Universe 6's Frost on the hunt for Universe 7 fighters as Frost looks to use his teammate Gogeta as a defense mechanism to protect himself from outside harm, as Frost looks to inflict major damage on Master Roshi by even turning the Mafuba against him and also getting his revenge on Vegeta, all while in the distance Frieza begins to slowly creep in and making moves, making it clear that the duo of Frost and Frieza are most certainly up to something very dangerous, as we also have Universe 3's Kaioken squaring up against both Dispo and Jiren, as slowly but surely as we creep on forward into the 1 hour premiere starring Jiren and Goku, we finally get to see Jiren's feats little by little as he makes his presence known against Kaioken, all while Frost and Frieza look to inflict major damage to everybody who remains in the tournament setting. What is going on, Dragon Ball fans? Welcome to my Dragon Ball Super episode 107 breakdown review entitled Revenge F, the Cunning Trap, leading into next week's exciting episode of Dragon Ball Super episode 108 starring Frieza and Gohan. As we got, based on the overall episode preview, we have major groundbreaking events scheduled to happen in the next couple of weeks, including Goku versus Jiren and something terrible happening, and even Frieza denouncing his own universe and trying to plot accordingly and having to rebel against not only his teammates but the gods themselves. So again, I do want to let you guys know, if you guys are new to this channel, be sure to go on ahead and punch that subscribe button and turn on that bell notification icon. That way you guys can be notified whenever a Dragon Ball video is posted onto this channel. It pertains to news, information, and updates. Hashtag notification squad to be up to date with all the latest in Dragon Ball, as we carry on with the Dragon Ball Super episode 108 preview showcasing both Frieza and Frost together, as we also get to see a brief shot of Gohan having to throw down with Frieza. Now Frieza denounces his universe. Now one can only assume as to why, but by the end of this preview it looks like that maybe it's Frost who's setting up to betray Frieza, because as Frieza is walking away, we see Frost get to charge up some sort of a beam in his finger as Frieza walks away, and he doesn't look to be taking on the role of having to be a follower to Frieza, because of course the two are similar in nature. So maybe Frost is going to be the one to try to betray Frieza, or maybe Frieza is simply using Frost as some sort of a ploy to get to where he wants to be. Either way, I don't see these characters having to work together for very long, especially after the 108 preview, having to see Frost at the very end pretty much holding out some sort of a beam as if he's ready to strike Frieza when he least expects it. But either way, we get to see Gohan throwing down with Frieza, as we also get to see Rematch throwing down with Son Goku. And we are going to be further discussing the overall predictions for this episode in the predictions video coming after this. But either way, the episode preview, of course, as shown on Fuji TV, didn't really show much. Of course, if you guys are watching on Crunchyroll.com, the extended preview may actually be there, but for the time being, we don't get to see much aside from Frieza and Frost being together, as we are going to have two showcased fights going into next week, that being Gohan and Frieza and Goku and Rematch. But Dragon Ball Super episode 107 pretty much showcased a very good portrayal of not just Frost, but also a little bit of Roshi and how much durability he has in surviving in the tournament setting. But also alongside with them, we finally get to see Jiren do something. Now, a lot of people have been complaining that Jiren hasn't done anything in this tournament, and to an extent, I agree. However, what he did in this episode following his attack on Kaioken even shook the face of Goku. Goku couldn't even believe in the distance as to what he saw, because think about it like this: Kaioken, who was able to hold down a Super Saiyan Goku, was one-shotted by Jiren after trying to be on the offensive and attacking him following his battle with Dispo. So with only one strike, Jiren was able to hit Kaioken so far out in the distance to where even the Universe 3 Kaioken and God of Destruction felt the force of Jiren after his attack on Kaioken. But what I didn't understand was how Dispo was so susceptible in being overtaken by Kaioken. I felt as if, you know, if Dispo was able to give Hit a run for his money momentarily, then how come he was having somewhat of a difficult time against Kaioken? But nonetheless, the people that were wrung out in this tournament happened to have been Gogeta, Master Roshi, and of course Maji Kaio, as we do understand going into episode 108, 109, and the special, the amount of people in this tournament are going to dwindle down, but this episode I think foreshadowed many things to come, including, as I said before, possibly seeing Frost betray Frieza, or maybe even witnessing Frieza betray Frost, or even some sort of like a double cross. But nonetheless, this episode I think was definitely handed down to Master Roshi being the MVP, because despite anything else, Roshi was able to maintain tremendous amounts of damage by Frost. As we've seen, Frost was shooting out tons of beams to Roshi, and despite everything else, Roshi was able to endure until the very end, where Vegeta told him it's time to go. And Roshi couldn't go anymore, because keep in mind, using the evil containment wave, or the Mafuba, twice within the same match can take a severe toll on your body. And the one thing I will have to say and give credit to is Vegeta, because despite everything else, by the end of it, you also have to understand that even though he put rocks in his ears so he can avoid Vegeta and trash talking him, ultimately enough, the same exact outcome happened, to where Vegeta was ringed out by Vegeta because of his insults. So that played a huge part in Vegeta having to get rung out. But the only downside is, I was actually kind of hoping to see Vegeta fight some of the other Universe 3 warriors or other machines, because it would have been great to see the quote-unquote Iron or Metal Man collide against some of the Universe 3 warriors, because they're mostly made out of machine parts and whatnot, being controlled by one guy called Pepperoni. So I was a little disappointed in not seeing Vegeta pretty much go the distance with certain other characters aside from Vegeta. And once Vegeta got in there, I love the overall utilization of Vegeta and having him be put as like the forefront shield in protecting Frost, because Frost was able to use his teammate as a barrier or shield to pretty much avoid Vegeta's attacks, which I thought was great, because finally we see a 2-on-1 handicap between Super Saiyan Vegeta and Frost and Vegeta, which I thought was great. But even early on, we get to see how Champa was talking to Frost, and Frost trying to clear his name of his crimes in exchange for getting back at Universe number 7. But despite everything else, I also feel towards the end, Frost could have demonstrated more, but instead he vanished using the exact same technique he did after ringing out Krillin in front of 18. So we haven't really seen Android 18 throughout all of this either, so hopefully enough we get to see Frost fighting 18, because it'll only make sense for 18 to try to get some redemption for Frost eliminating her husband, but that remains to be seen. Nothing from Android 17, not much from Goku either, aside from him having to be shook and shocked on the idea of what Jiren just did to Maji Kaio. And of course, we have the mushroom blob herself, Brienne, having to square up against Goku. And again, as I said on my Twitter feed, I felt as if there was one image or one scene in particular with Goku where he had sort of like his limit breaker hair going on. Even though it's not the same thing, it kind of resembled that in the overall structure of his hair, which I thought was pretty cool to see. But nonetheless, we have Goku versus Brienne coming up next, as we do understand that based on 108 and 109 spoilers, that Jiren is going to quote-unquote overwhelm Goku and overwhelm the other fighters with his tremendous ki. So we can only assume right now as to what's going to be happening in the near future involving Jiren, involving some of the other fighters, because Jiren as of right now is beginning to slowly step in, as even Topo himself was fairly surprised as to what Jiren was doing, because as Dispo and Topo were about to engage with Maji Kaio, Jiren stepped in and with one swift and cunning blow, he put Maji Kaio down. Now looking at Vegeta, I loved how Vegeta was portrayed in this episode, because at first he wasn't really paying attention to what Frost was doing up until the very middle-ish of the episode, where Frost pretty much got his attention, because it was because of Roshi tiring out that he wasn't able to fully seal away Frost early on, due to the fact that he was already overwhelmed on having to disperse so much energy during that battle and having to practically be drained. But even despite all of that, we see how Roshi threw Frost down into the jar and he missed, and because of that, Frost was able to adapt. Now some people are gonna say, how in the world did Frost, learn that? How did he pick up on that? Well, don't forget, back during the Zamasu arc, future Trunks was also able to learn the Mafuba just by watching something be done on a phone because of Piccolo. So, we saw Piccolo demonstrate on the, smartphone that Bulma had, and Trunks was able to pick that up relatively easily. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that Frost was able to do that, even though he wasn't able to use the Mafuba technique himself. What he did was use Roshi as some sort of a vessel in draining that technique away from him and taking it and reversing it on Vegeta. So I thought that was pretty cunning, even though by the end of it, it was really cool to see, because Frost was about to toss Vegeta out until Roshi was able to deflect some sort of a beam that broke the container in releasing Vegeta. Now, you guys have to give credit to Vegeta, and every single Vegeta fan out there has to acknowledge what he did in this episode, because it was what Vegeta did in this episode that solidified his character that much more, because he didn't take anything lying down from Frost. He wasn't going to kick back and wait for something to happen. He went full blown on the offensive, and let's be realistic here. If Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta fought Frost, this would be a very one-sided battle. So for anyone out there who's been complaining or wanting to see Frost fight Blue Vegeta, it wouldn't make any sense, because we can all come together and agree that Frost is not really on a comparative level to Blue Vegeta, as many would assume. But nonetheless, as Vegeta went Super Saiyan Blue, we see Frost just disappear in the quickness, which I thought was a bit cowardly, because I think I speak on a lot of people's behalf where we want to see more of Frost, and I think that as the episodes continue, we might see more of him. But of course, some of the other characters haven't been really getting any sort of screen time. For example, Kaio was never really seen fighting somebody other than holding down Goku and momentarily fighting Dispo, whereas I feel like they could have given Kaio a bit more time to develop, because I think out of most characters shown in this tournament, he's one of the most unique characters, because to me, he reminds me of Kid Buu, of Majin Buu in general, and of course a little bit of Baby having to be a liquefied organism, to where even Dispo was able to blow a hole right through Kaio, in him having to not only regenerate and just holding, you know, Dispo down using his techniques and whatnot, but also morphing his hand into the form of a scissor. And he said that he was going to clip Dispo's ears. It was really cool to see, but of course, one of the downsides to this tournament is not seeing most of these characters be utilized, such as Kaio, because you can't really sit there and say that you didn't want to see Kaio engage in battle with Gohan or Frieza or someone of that nature, just to see how he would fare up. Even Vegeta, I would have loved to see Vegeta square up against some of the other Universal fighters. Roshi was good because he took down most of Universe number 4, so he had his moments to shine and Roshi had to go. But for some of the other characters, I would have to say, I really hope that we get to see more from Frost, perhaps maybe even seeing Frieza fight Dispo, Frieza fight, you know, even Frost for that matter, if of course it comes down to those two exchanging blows, because I would love to see what would happen if Frieza engages with him. But of course, going into Dragon Ball Super episode 108, we are going to see Gohan in trouble, because he's having trouble against the Universe 2 Yardrat, which we don't know if of course he's going to be eliminated. And we understand, based on what's happening now, that most of these fighters are taking the time to rest, such as Kale and Khalifa. And my question to all of you is, where has Kaba been this entire time? What in the world happened to Kaba this entire time? He hasn't been involved in any fight. He hasn't been showcased doing anything. So the question is, hashtag, where is Kaba? Has Kaba disappeared? Hopefully enough, as the episodes continue, we get to see more from Kaba. Hopefully enough, Kaba does come on the scene and does something relative to help out his teammates and whatnot. But post your comments down below, guys. What did you guys think of this episode? I'll be really honest, in my opinion, I think Dragon Ball Super episode 107 was better than Dragon Ball Super episode 105 and 106. That is just my opinion, based on the development we saw from Roshi and able to withstand Frost's attacks, and seeing Frost be cunning enough in trapping Vegeta in the Mafuba and using Vegeta as a ploy to try to throw him out, and also seeing Vegeta ring out Vegeta, and also seeing Jiren finally be able to do something without actually doing something. He stood in his own ground and he didn't even move. So all he did was dish out one final punch, and Kaio was rendered useless after that. So you have to give credit to Jiren for actually doing something so far, because I think that he hasn't done something ever since his little encounter with Kale. But post your comments down below, guys. What are your overall thoughts on this episode? Did you guys like it? Did you guys hate it? What would you guys change about it? Thank you all so much for watching. If you guys are new to the channel, be sure to go on ahead and punch that subscribe button, guys, and turn on notifications. That way you guys can be notified whenever a video is posted onto this channel. Tune back in for more, and I'll be seeing each and every single one of you guys down in the comment section below. Have a great day, everybody. Peace.